Okay, so by way of background, this is a quick seminar on building your brand and how to create a winning story for college applications. Who here knows about personal branding? When you think about personal branding, what do you think?
I think about making yourself known to other people, how you present yourself to other people.
I don't want to record you because that is exactly what I want to hear every time I ask that question. Add to that?
No.
That was good, huh? Solid. It's exactly what it is. And we'll get to that exact point in a little bit. In terms of my brand and in terms of who I am, I started Right Track Admissions in 2008. I'm a lawyer, and here is kind of my story. Now, this is not the story of my personal story, but this is the story of how it all mapped out as it came to the admissions process. I studied abroad for 8 years, even though I lived here when I was a kid, but I studied abroad all through middle school and high school. So applying as an international student in the US is difficult. It's not that easy. I was an average high school student, didn't have the greatest grades, except for the last 2 years, everything kind of started coming together. I did something called the International Baccalaureate. Okay? I had below average SAT scores. Suffice it to say, it took me not once, not twice, but 3 times to break 4 digits, which is pretty sad for me. And I really tried hard, and I think I ended up with a 1050, so I barely broke it, right? And I lacked college guidance for US schools. I went to a British school, so they didn't have a lot of guidance for people who are applying for international, for US schools. Despite all that, I figured that the best thing I had going for me was the story I can tell on the applications, which is essentially why you guys are here. You guys are building the story that you guys are going to eventually write. How many of you guys are juniors here? Seniors? Sophomores? Okay, good. The younger you are, the better it is for this workshop, because we're talking about personal brand. I need a runway. People who are applying this year, your runway is pretty much ended because you guys are writing your story as we speak, okay? Thankfully, the application I put together was successful. I applied, I got into UCSB, transferred to UCLA, used the same processes to get into UC Berkeley for law school. While I was in law, I did a master's in Cambridge in England, passed the California bar, and then 8 years later did my second master's at Harvard, where I got a full scholarship for my studies. In that meantime, I worked with the US government as an international lawyer, worked in private sector, was an entrepreneur, traveled, and all that kind of stuff. Those kind of things, it's like chicken or the egg. Well, did you do international law because you fell into it, or did you love it and then you got into it? And the idea is that the core values you have, who you are as a person, the brand that you've created, dictates what schools you end up going to, what career path you have. That's key. That's important to think about, okay? And so for me, the brand, the person, who I was, helped me better choose in terms of international law, entrepreneurship, getting into this, more public speaking, civic engagement, and so forth. That is very important to think about. The brand that you create dictates the story you're going to write, which then dictates the outcome of what you're going to do. Does that make sense? And we'll talk a lot more about that as we go through the process. Okay, so building your brand. Let me know if you guys even think this is fair. 68% of admissions officers say it's fair game to review your social media accounts. Who here has Instagram? Who here has Twitter? Who here has Snapchat? I know, this is sad. Who here has Facebook? Wow. It's so sad. But it's bananas. I don't get that. It's just so weird. I completely got blindsided. I even tried to put in our Facebook account, which clearly nobody's going to add. So that sucks. Okay. So in terms of that, how many of your accounts are public? How many accounts are private? Okay, which ones are private? Twitter or Instagram? Okay, so Instagram. So who here has a private Instagram account? So it sounds like most of you have private Instagram accounts. Who's got a public Instagram account? Why do you have a public Instagram account?
I really don't care.
You don't care?
Yeah, people see my pictures because I don't post a lot, that's why.
Okay.
Because I'm watchful of what I post.
You're watchful what you post. Okay. You got nothing to hide. Okay. And then quickly here, just as another quick side note, 70% of employers review your social media accounts when they're hiring you. So just think about all of that. That means it's fair game. They could literally go in, especially if it's public, and they can take a look at it. I assume everybody's got a public Twitter account.
Yeah.
Get out of here. You make your Twitter account private? Why? I thought the whole purpose of it was that you exchange information.
Nobody follows it, so
Okay, well, if you go gangbusters and you win, then everybody's going to start following you. The point is this. Did you guys ever hear about the Iowa student, or I guess guy who went to the stadium? He had a sign that said, "Hey, fund my beer fund," or something like that, or "give me money for my beer fund," and then he hashtagged his Venmo account, and then he started making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and people are giving money for his beer fund. You guys hear about this? Okay, he does that. He goes to the stadium, puts a sign up, okay? Everybody and their mother is like, oh, that's so cool. We're going to give money to this guy's beer fund, right? He already makes a couple $100,000. Guess what happens? Anheuser-Busch wises up and is like, wow, this guy actually put Anheuser-Busch. We're going to actually match whatever they made. He made $1 million off that. No joke. He made $1 million off that. And what did he end up doing with that $1 million? This is really cool. He gave it to a college fund for like underserved kids, right? And only kept the money that he needed to buy a case of beer. So this guy is like legendary from Iowa, wow, right? Somebody comes in and wants to do a quick story about the guy, right? So some reporter from his town says, hey, I want to come and do a quick story, but what do? They do a little Google search about him, they take a look at his Twitter, they take a look at his Instagram, and guess what they find? Especially on his Twitter. A bunch of stuff that was derogatory, anti-Semitic, racially, bias, all kinds of stuff that was problematic. Guess what happens? Anheuser-Busch pulls out their sponsorship, and the guy goes down into a blaze of glory. Dunzo. Okay, how easy was that for him? And he posted that stuff when he was 16. He was like 22 or 23 now. That was it. It dead-ended his career. His name's always going to be synonymous because once your name's up there, you'll Google you and they'll find you there and they're going to say your moral turpitude, your moralities, your values, your integrity is not something we can trust. We will not support you, right? That is the world we live in today. Self-policing and has all your information spread all over the place. That's why it's important to get a personal brand, stick with it, and be consistent with it, and be authentic with it, okay? So that's kind of the warning fire right there. That's why it's important. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, okay? Jeff Bezos. Who's Jeff Bezos? One of? Richest people. Let's not even say drop the one. He is the richest guy in the world. Over $100 billion, obviously, in Amazon stock. His stock crashes, he's nobody. But the idea is that he's one of the richest people in the world, or the richest person in the world, okay? He says that. He says, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So they'll just be like, oh yeah, I know Bob. Bob's a cool guy. He is really a stand-up. He's got strong integrity, morals, and honest, and so forth. Or not. And that's the brand that you carry with you, okay? So why is that important as it pertains? I can go on and on and on about personal branding outside of college admissions, but I want to kind of narrow it down to college admissions. Why is that even important? Because the grades you have are not enough to make you stand out, just a fact. Okay, the average grade for those Ivy Leagues that we talked about in the room over there, the average is like a 4.01, 4.03. That's the average GPA. Let alone your LSAT score, your SAT score is going to be probably something like 90th to 99th percentile, straight off the bat. So your grades are not enough to get you in. So it really is, if you want to inspire people and so forth, is how hard you work to stand out and the attention you grab about you that is positive, right? So what is and how do you develop your personal brand? The way that you do it is you have to think about what makes you unique. What's your superpower? Values, what makes you happy? Legacy, tell me, what makes you happy?
Family.
Family, but give me more. What is family?
The people I share, the people I hang out with, maybe.
Share a common bond that you know they're going to stand by you.
Yes.
That makes you happy, right? On a given day, when you're sad, right? What makes you happy? What makes you excited? What makes you passionate? Food. What kind of food? Did you like the pink hot dogs? Did that make you happy? It was all right. It was all right. Wow. Okay. What superpower would you say you have? Something that really makes you unique and stand out. Something you're really that's gifted about you.
I don't know.
Something. Your smile.
Okay.
Okay? That's important. Just the fact that you make other people happy. The fact that I assume you have other friends that you kind of like jive with. That's a power. Some people are not like that, right? What is your superpower? What makes you happy? What makes you unique? When you think about these things, they're not just platitudes. They're things you need to be thinking about constantly, because they will come down to the bedrock of what your values are. Tell me, what are your values? Give me like one value that you really would say is anchored in who you are. Come on. It's a big question? It is a loaded question, I'm not going to lie to you. Community values, I'll give you the positive ones, the classics. Community values, honesty, integrity, something that you really value, family, community.
Let's say honesty.
Honesty, super important to you. It literally is everything that you stand for. And it will pervade now, and when you're in college, and when you're a professional, and when you're a family person, and when you retire, it's always going to be there. It's a consistent, right? So that is your values, right? Now, how do you develop and come up with these ideas? You do that by the interests that you take on, right? Skills, interests, hobbies, activities, right? Introspection. When you think for yourself, when you sit down and you're in your own voice. You don't have your phone on, that moment before you crash, the time, in sleep, the time you wake up, those quiet moments. I hope you guys have them. I know you guys have so much going on around you in terms of like noise, but I hope you guys can take a moment to kind of sit back and pause and think about yourself. Introspection, thinking about yourself in the process, right? And the interactions, right? There's a reason that Namdi didn't sit back and just mentor each one of you one by one. He wanted to bring you guys all together to learn from each other, right? The interactions you have, these help you figure these things out, okay? And when you figure these things out, you want to stay consistent, right? You want to have your values stay consistent, right? Somebody said, what was it? Not family. Your value was honesty. Imagine, very difficult to imagine this, but imagine that you're all about honesty. On your Instagram is all about honesty, calling people out, things that you really believe in and so forth. And suddenly we got a picture of you like, there's a classic, like taking a picture, sweating, pretending that you just ran like 10 kilometers, right? Or like a couple of miles, right? And then one of your friends calls you out, takes a picture of you taking a picture because you're sitting in your car and you're driving from place to place and just put some sweat on your head. You pointing to, right? But that, if you post that, that's not honesty. That takes away from the consistency. That is not authentic. Authenticity requires consistency in the values that you have. Does that make sense? Am I going way too high? And I didn't realize that connection until recently. Authenticity is not about being genuine only. It's about believing values that consistently are consistent throughout. That's what makes it authentic. If you say, what my superpower is I'm a leader, and then next thing you know, when you really need to lead, you drop the ball, or you only lead in work, but you don't lead in sports, or you only lead in sports, you don't lead with your friends. That's not consistent. That's not authentic. That's not genuine. People will see right through that, right? And they'll call you out for that. Maintain a healthy balance, right? This is very important. Once you figure all these things out, you want to maintain how your brand kind of fits into your life, right? The personal. You've talked about family, right? You chose family over, nudge her again. You've chosen family as something that's super important to you, and personal is family, right? It's health, it's food, it's what you eat, it's what you kind of consume, it's the foundation of who you are and everything that pervades you in your life as a foundation. But that's not enough to kind of push your life forward. You can be a family person at this age, but that's not going to channel making money or changing lives or something like that, right? So the personal is family, health, sports, travel, things that really pertain to you, that make you who you are as a foundation. The passion, right? Would you say you're passionate about food? Do you cook? A little bit. You getting more and more into it? No. Why are you telling me that, man? Okay, so imagine you did, and it became something where you're like, I need to disconnect today because it's been a hell of a day, and you just start cooking, and it becomes something that you love. It gets you excited, right? That's your passion, right? And the passion is what makes you tick. It's what makes you look forward to getting out of bed, right? And the professional, or in your case academic, but even professional, is what fuels the whole process. Without a professional end to make money, then you can't survive, supposedly. That's how it works, right? All these three need to be balanced. But in and of themselves, if they're not balanced correctly, they could become a problem. Let me tell you how. Let's say you love yoga. You love yoga because to you, it's about health. Now imagine, and mindfulness. Now imagine you love yoga, it's about your health, but you also become passionate by it. You love it, you do it every day. And you become so good at it that everybody here wants to go to your yoga class, so suddenly you make it into a profession. Where does it become a problem? When you do too much of a passion, that you start doing you're too passionate by doing something that becomes a profession, the profession you're making money, and you end up saying, I'm now dependent on yoga to get me through the day in terms of my finances. At the end of the day, you're gonna be like, I don't care that much about yoga anymore. I don't want to do it for people. I want to do it for myself. That's how it started. So you want to maintain a healthy balance when you figure out your brand and how all of this kind of comes together. Building your tribe, we've talked about this. Networking, events, face-to-face. Build people around you that are like-minded, that can support you, that can support the brand that you've carried. The honesty, right? You nudged your girl right here, right? I'm hoping she's honest too.
She is.
Okay, good. Because that's important to you. I suppose you have somebody who's a liar, somebody you don't trust. You're not going to surround yourself by them. So build your tribe because they're the ones that are going to be able to push you up, right? And then find your platform. We talked about social media, right? And we talked about how problematic social media can be. In one tweet, one thing that you say, one retweet, for the love of God, just one retweet of somebody that you just thought that was funny, right? And it's over. It could really damage and destroy everything that you've built in terms of the brand that you've created. Or other things. There's somebody in the room talked about a passion in art. We talk about public speaking, which is very important to me as a platform. It's more important to me than social media. Videos that you create, writing that you do, right? So these are all ways of how to kind of project and propel and create your personal brand, okay? Now, what does this got to do with college? When it comes to college, they value IQ and EQ. Can somebody tell me what EQ is?
Emotional quotient? Emotional quotient?
Perfect. And what's emotional quotient or what's emotional intelligence? How would you define it?
Oh, you like how much compassion you have for others?
Good, good. And why is that important to universities? Why do colleges care about the compassion you have for others? Yeah, exactly. Do you want to be just a bookworm in the library studying away? Does that even matter when it comes to college? It's important to have great grades because it basically is a way of assessing your development mentally. By the end of the day, I can tell you, 4 degrees, 9 years of education, I can't even remember what I studied in college. I can't even remember what I studied the last time in my master's degree. It doesn't matter. It matters about how you grow as a person, how you interact with people, the people you surround yourself by, the network. But really, it's about your growth as a person, the confidence that you gain, the way that you can change lives, the way you can apply yourself to a company or a community and so forth. So EQ is so, so important, and schools look for that, and that's why they ask you provocative essays that push you. They don't say, how good are you in math? I would love to see an essay about that, right? They ask you, and you'll see the kind of questions they're going to ask are really provocative, thinking about your EQ than your IQ. Embracing challenges, right? Taking risks. Tell me, when was the last time you took a risk that you didn't know the outcome of it?